Welcome to Hadoop Summit. It's a pleasure to be up here in front of you. For those of you that were in the keynote, there were a bunch of themes that I think are going to come to life here in the next few slides. So we heard a lot about some use cases across multiple industries. Arun talked a little bit about what's needed and what projects he's working on in the open source community to really make Hadoop an enterprise asset integrated with additional elements. So you're going to see some of that in my slide deck. We have a couple of really exciting announcements that are going to be at the end of this deck, so stick around. We're very excited to have those announcements. And one thing that Rob kind of said, Bearden, it's enterprise adoption, right? It's 100%. You heard it from the analyst folks. Hadoop is not going to be. Is it going to be part of the ecosystem? It is, right? I think we all know that. So anyway, I'll try to touch on some of those themes and link back a lot of the keynotes from today. To kick things off, just a support slide for the Open Data Platform organization, Teradata. So Think Big is part of Teradata. We were acquired into Teradata back in September. So a few months ago, we're very proud to be part of Teradata organization globally, really known as a global leader in data management, data analytics, data platforms. So we are extremely excited to be part of that organization. So really on this slide, it's about a partnership. It's about the ecosystem. It's about multiple components coming together, not just enterprise assets, but also this fast-moving open source environment. So the title of this talk is What We've Learned Over 5 years. We started the company back in June of 2010, Think Big, to basically be a pure play Hadoop services organization. And as we all know, it's not just about Hadoop, it's about integrating Hadoop into enterprise architectures and a lot of the other components. So some of the things that are important here, teamwork is critical. Okay, I know that sounds a little bit apple pie, but it's very true. And when I say teamwork, it's not just about a Think Big team working with a client team, right? Part of success and part of bringing Hadoop to the enterprise is very often working with multiple systems integrators, working with the business from the client, working with the technology folks from the client, right? This is some passionate work that really requires a team to come together and make it happen. Right, I think we all know, those of you who have experience with Hadoop, you don't just download something, install it, throw data in, and all of a sudden you have predictive analytics. Right, there's a lot more to do in there. So teamwork is absolutely critical. Skills matter. When we started the company back in 2010, we thought that data scientists, we were going to be hiring mathematic-focused people as fast as we could, right? We started the company in Silicon Valley, offices in Salt Lake, Chicago, New York, and Boston. We thought it was going to be a mathematics race. How fast could we hire mathematics folks, right? And you do need data scientists, that the industry is calling them now. But what we learned is, in order to get the data prepared for those wonderful data scientists and analysts and downstream, analytics folks, you need a lot of engineering. So kind of the data engineering side of our business really is the bulk of what Think Big is today. And as we build more sophisticated platforms for our clients, we're starting to integrate kind of that data science element. So the skills matter, and folks that we work with, that we hire, and that we work with at our clients, this is a journey. You need to understand how data moves, how platforms work, how analytics, what the workloads are, what the data sets are, what you're looking for. Right? I thought it was really interesting. The Microsoft speaker today at the keynote talked about, when he goes in and works with clients, he asks a question, what do you want to do better? What do you want to do faster? Right? And when we do roadmaps, we do strategy engagements, we ask the same thing. Right? Very often, that business side of big data is overlooked. There's a lot of slides. I'm going to have some slides here and some architecture patterns that hopefully provide some frameworks to you guys that really want to do this at scale. But a lot of the upfront stuff, really setting this from a business sponsorship perspective, if you don't have that business sponsorship, that buy-in, it's not just another IT project. The last one, celebrate success. Kind of following the teamwork, This is, yes, it's enterprise ready, but it does require a lot of work. It requires a lot of expertise, both in engineering and data science and business sponsorship and technical sponsorship. So when you do win, right, and kind of our approach is an agile approach, so it's multiple wins and constantly getting better, celebrate them, right? Because this platform, has to be something that if you build it, they will come, right? Hopefully you have a few people coming to the party right out of the gate so that they can celebrate it. But it's really, really important for those of you who are in, project management and sales, celebrate that success. Okay, we very often miss that part of, all the hard work that we do. So the next slide, this is just a couple of things. So Wikipedia and the analyst today during a keynote had job trends, right? So kind of a feel good for the group. We've used that slide on the right quite a bit. So that slide on the right, those of you who do know Indeed.com, they kind of crawl and search all job openings and take all the words that are in the job openings. So if you look at Hadoop and NoSQL, the growth of those jobs, that little orange circle is when we started Think Big, right? So from our perspective as a founder of the company with my other two founders and our whole team that started Think Big, when we got together, we knew this was going to be the case, right? And I think this is just the beginning. I think this summit itself, a couple thousand people, is a testament to kind of where this market is going, and it's much more comprehensive than just Hadoop. Right, we're talking about other open source projects now, and Spark and Storm, and it's moving at the speed of light and with no end and stop. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that there's going to be any less use of technology, from a human perspective and from a machine perspective, right? So data is not slowing down anytime soon. If anything, it's exponentially growing, right? So this market is big. And it's not just a one and done. You don't do Hadoop. You don't do big data, right? So a little bit about Think Big. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. We're 100% focused on big data. So, certainly Hadoop is at the center. Hadoop is at the core of what we do. It has been since day one. But as we all know, you have to be relevant, not just in the other open source ecosystem projects, but also in all of the technologies that have been invented over the past 20, 30 years as we work with, massive companies, right? So it's 100% big data focus. We started in 2010. We have over 100 engagements across 70 clients. So there's a lot of companies out there that, they might be doing pilots and POCs, or they might be doing PowerPoint level strategy engagements, and that's great. That's how we started back in 2010. But we have, over 70 clients that we've worked with at massive scale, right? So I think we've kind of have a little bit of credibility when it comes to kind of this space, as evidenced, I think, by being part of Teradata now globally. We focus on unlocking the client value, right? If you're not about client value, why are you doing it? It's a vendor neutral. We work with all the platform providers. So Hortonworks, Cloudera, MapR is the three major distros. We work with Amazon and their suite of products that they have. Obviously Teradata, but all of the other enterprise assets that are in the marketplace. So from our perspective at Think Big, our charter is to work with clients to make them wildly successful regardless of their platforms, right? And that's really exciting for us as part of Teradata. We have an agile approach. Our academy, I'll touch on that a little bit later, but you have to invest. If you're building a capability, whether you're a client or whether you're someone in this space building a services capability, you have to have a way to create the skills. Because as we all know, you don't find people with 8 years Hadoop, right? They'd be starting companies, right, by now, right? So you have to find a way to kind of manufacture and make these skills relevant, both on the data engineering and the data science side. From a services perspective, we have three major services: strategy, implementation, and support. The bar across the bottom, we have a number of frameworks. I'll touch upon that in a few slides. And again, in the spirit of thought leadership, these are at the design pattern level, right? So these are things that we see regardless of distribution, regardless of the enterprise data warehouse, regardless of the relational system, regardless of whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. These are the things that we see that you have to get right. From a client perspective, we're extremely proud of this slide, right? So our 5-year birthday, I think, is June, this coming June, right? So we're not even 5 yet. And to have, as a startup, this level of clients that we've worked with is extremely proud, right? And I think a lot of the thinking here, whether it's innovative retail companies or financial services companies or manufacturing companies, from our perspective, we take this really serious, and we'll always have an enterprise approach. How can this platform kind of help the enterprise? We have some ROI slides on one of our major clients that is really compelling. Some of the themes across here are, we used to have a slide treatment. We have clients that are really device data intensive, right? So if you think about device data intensive, whether it's automotive industry or the manufacturing industry, sensors, essentially machines that are emitting information, right? Companies that are trying to use that information better in their business. We have clients that are focused on risk, right? You instantly think of insurance, financial services, credit, right? That world that are using these platforms. And then the third major bucket, if you slice kind of all of our projects that we've done, is on the that delight the customer, that recommendation engine, knowing your customer better, being there before they leave, integrating customer service with the website, with your mobile, all that stuff, right? So those are the three major patterns that we see kind of in our clients. So one, big data is a journey, not an event. We've had a number of initial conversations with clients that say, I need a big data strategy and I need a project, right? And that's great because you have to start somewhere. But you don't just do a project and all of a sudden, check, you're doing big data, right? This is a journey. Those of you who are using these technologies, either in pilot mode or POC mode or in enterprise, you know how fast the innovation is happening, right? So it's a journey. Be prepared for that. The second one, this kind of goes to kind of our thought process around hiring. And, I was thinking we were going to have a whole bunch of mathematicians and data scientists versus a blend of data engineers and data scientists. This one is spot on. Right, so those of you who are really doing this, make sure that you invest in engineering. Your engineers and your data science, your data engineers and data scientists need to work effectively together from day one. That's a big one. The third one, we're starting to get into some of the architecture patterns and design patterns. So those of you who are trying to put these assets at scale, metadata, management, governance, security, again, back to Arun's keynote that he gave today, right? Some of the things that he's working on and some of the things that Hortonworks and the entire partnership community are working on are largely around these elements, right? And there's no surprise because if you're going to have an enterprise class asset that has SLAs and has business users and business processes that are relying on them, you have to have a lot of these elements. And I think those of you who are familiar with the whole Jeffrey Moore curve, right, the trough of despair for any market when you dip down and then you start to come up. I think that trough of despair is a couple of years ago, the notion was, this stuff is easy. You can just put it in the cloud on Amazon. It doesn't cost any money. You don't even need schema. Just store data and it's schema on read when you want to. Wow, right? That couldn't be, yes, I guess it's true. But to do it right, you don't just store a whole bunch of data without knowing what the data is and then hope, at the end that you have something, right? So if you don't get that ingestion done right up front, you're missing everything. Okay, and you may have a successful first project or a pilot, but man, if you kind of have other users and other people bringing their data to the party, look out. Look out. I'll use an acronym. We're talking a lot about enterprise data lakes and, talking about data swamps, right? We've seen our fair share of data swamps that we come in and help rectify. The fourth one, this may be from our consulting background. So, Think Big is, we started this for 5 years, but back in the 90s, a whole bunch of us started a consulting company around the internet. And a lot of the patterns are the same, right? So back in 1995, 1996, no one knew what the internet was, right? So how could you understand as an IT person or a business person how to work, right? You were trying to figure out client server and didn't know how to build distributed applications on the internet, right? So same thing goes for today. In this big data world, a platform or a magic tool or a, Hadoop or a streaming system is not going to solve organizational challenges. So again, back to the teamwork, this is a big one. And the fifth one, and I think this is more of a testament to kind of the entire open source ecosystem, all the committers across all the companies, across all the distros, across all the core projects of Apache. This is actually a testament to them, because never in the history of computing have we seen innovation at this speed. It's truly unbelievable, right? And to stay on top of this market and to stay on top of all the trends and what releases of all the different componentry of what works with what, it's challenging. All right, so I'm going to use a case study here to talk a little bit about some of the core patterns that you absolutely need to get right when you're deploying these architectures. This particular client happens to be spread across North America and Asia. It's a $25+ billion organization, so certainly not a small startup, which has its pros and cons, right? It has a lot of value to earn and stuff to improve and increase, but it also has a lot to lose, right? So when you're talking about publicly traded companies and in the billions, these aren't just side projects you're doing in the cloud on a science experiment, right? When you're talking about enterprise class SLAs, when you're dealing with this amount of data and resources that are driving product quality on this, it's a big deal. Now, the business case going in, if you look at the bottom, they had kind of a scrap waste problem. They had what they called the data search party problem. Data search party meaning they have multiple manufacturing facilities across APAC. When something went wrong or they found out from a client downstream, how did they go back and figure out where that came from? What other products were potentially made the same way? What other products were made with the same componentry that went into that product that they're seeing issues in, right? So we all want to talk about predictive machine failure, right? That front end, that data science kind of stuff, the mathematics stuff, the really cool stuff. But if you don't have the plumbing and the engineering at this level, you can never do that, right? So that's what I meant by the engineering is almost as important up front than the data science. So part of the value prop here is really taking all of the data from multiple systems, multiple silos, multiple platforms, putting it all together and keeping it wet, not on tape, and searchable and retrievable in seconds versus weeks that it took these guys to put it together in the past. And from, when you're researching, kind of temperature gauges and fabrication process and minute movements of lasers and, this is a massive amount of data. So you can only see it when you step back and you look at all this data together, not just little sample sets that they used to do, right? So if you look at some of the core things, so engineering and ingestion design are critical, right? And that's definitely a theme for you guys in the crowd. The upfront way in which you acquire and ingest the data is vital. And I think a lot of companies that we work with and that we engage with miss this, right? Because they've been part of, maybe they read something or whatever, and they said, oh, this stuff is easy, and you don't have to know how the data lands, and you don't have to have SQL and no schema, and just land it, and you're going to be successful. Well, we're saying right out of the gate, you have to understand all that. Okay, it's really, really important. So kind of the first one, have kind of a buffer server up front, right? And this is really going to allow you to do much better pipeline management, capture metadata management at this point, Your packaging on ingest when you're processing this information is really important. Sometimes you're dealing with massive files that are coming in. Sometimes you're dealing with lots of mini files, right? So understand your packaging approach. And I can't underscore enough the importance of metadata. So as it relates to data lineage down the path, right? So part of the benefit of the Hadoop ecosystem is storing all the data raw so that as you learn stuff in your business, you can go back in time and rerun those analyses, right? That's a huge, powerful weapon when you understand that concept, especially as a data scientist, right? So, and that's really one of the benefits and the gifts of these platforms is you're not tainting the information right out of the gate, right? As soon as you parse it, add stuff to it, and then store it, you don't have it raw anymore, right? So you can always go back and learn. So that metadata management is really important. This next one, this design pattern, parse on demand. So what do we mean by this? So let's say that you're trying to integrate weather data, and the feed that you're getting has 10 elements. Temperature, wind speed, daylight, whatever the elements are, right? Work with your data science team to figure out which 2 or 3 they want to use, right? You don't need to parse all of them, right? So don't spend that engineering time because you're storing the data raw. Just store, say, temperature and wind speed, right? And give that to your data science team. As they get into their analysis and their results, they may say, hey, you know what? We want to turn on a new element. We need humidity. We need something else, right? Now you have that power, right? And it's a sophisticated piece here, but it's really important because a lot of companies would try to just parse everything and slow down the project or take a little bit extra time to do that. So kind of this is a velocity increase right here to get this pattern right. Establishing zones for your pipeline. So you see up here a landing zone, an ingestion zone, a core zone, your publishing zone. Now these are fully integrated. So these are not, silos, right? So it's, yes, they're in different boxes to show the processes, but really make sure that you set up these zones to have complete control of all the pipelining in your system. Okay, the next one, think globally. So right out of the gate, take advantage of, redundancies. And again, this is an early pattern, again, at ingestion. A lot of companies don't realize this. A lot of, businesses don't realize this till after the fact, right? When they are at scale and they start to get lots and lots of feeds in different data streams. So design for this up front. That's an important one. Create a data treatment facility. So here you see kind of HDFS, an ELT process, an enterprise data warehouse. Have Hadoop be what it is. It is a file system, right? Its name is a Hadoop distributed file system, right? So use it as such. It is not a SQL engine. It's not. It's a file system. Now, there are other components and other downstream kind of things that can be SQL heavy, right? And there's lots of great innovation, but Hadoop itself is a file system. So use it as one. A lot of people miss that pattern. Kind of for those of you who are using distributed applications across multiple geographies, there's a lot of patterns at the WAN level that you can take advantage of. And then probably this one, publishing your data. So from that publish zone out, understand your requirements from either the applications or the people that are requiring the data, and make sure that you don't just do design for all, right? Have very unique ways in which the data can go to your users. Governance, this is key, right? So as these assets kind of move into the enterprise and are first-class citizens and have SLAs that are demanding of the business, this is really, really important. Optimize access patterns. So you see the Ferrari at the bottom and the freight train on the left. So this kind of gets back to the Hadoop, what it is and what it is not. In the relational world, and we've known this pattern really, really well, right? Those of you who understand that and can look at it and know what it is, right? It's fast access of small packages, right? So think of, using the grocery store. So it's a Ferrari moving a tiny little bag of groceries, but super fast, right? And that's what you use kind of that system for and that design pattern. In the Hadoop world, you have to optimize for transitive closure, right? It's not just a bag of groceries, your eggs and your milk. It's moving warehouses of food, right? So don't treat the one on the left like the right and the one on the right like the left, okay? Really understand those two different ways in which you're accessing information and how you're setting up your architecture. So we talked about pipeline management. This is for visibility. So as you get into multiple processes, multiple data streams, multiple sources coming in, you have to have a way to kind of manage this pipeline. Data quality is really important, right? Especially when these become enterprise assets. You have to know, where did I get 100% of this file from, this facility, from this sensor. When you're talking about engine parts and moving cars and potentially accidents, these are things you better get right? So really optimize for these up front. So a couple last ones on detailed ingestion. So I can't emphasize enough, and this comes not just from myself, but all of our talented architects and engineers that think big. I sent out an email to everyone asking them, what are the 5 things that we've learned over the past few years, and a lot of these things came back. So this has been a great exercise, just pulling together some of this content for this slide. And when you look at the sheer number of systems. Right, you have source 1 instance up there times 5. You have source 2, or it should be source 2 times 15, 15, 7. These are all the systems that are emitting information on a regular basis. And again, those of you who have been around, at least a year, if not, 15, 20, when you're building enterprise systems and you have this many sources that are coming in, you better get that right. So the ROI on this is compelling. And these are kind of, when done right, and when an organization, this particular client, truly embrace top to bottom at the ingestion level, technical level, the business level, these ROIs are amazing, right? So truly celebrate that success. Kind of 11 million return year 1, and that's kind of estimated. That green line for additional sales now in year 2 has grown significantly because the product quality that they're manufacturing, they are so dialed in. One of their biggest problems, if you think about a manufacturing perspective, is when you're manufacturing lots of devices or lots of componentry, when you see something that's suboptimal, very often you kind of capture as much of it as possible and quarantine it, and do a whole bunch of other checks and quality checks on it, right? Because you don't want to continue it down into the supply chain process. And very often, because companies didn't have a fine-grained control on all of the little elements and the comprehensive data on all this, they would basically just take more than they thought to be safe, right? Now, more than they thought very often means not shipping products, not making sales, not making revenue, having downstream clients that are relying on those componentries to ship their products, right? So this is a big, big deal. And from a Hadoop perspective, we think this is one of the kind of interesting patterns in the whole Internet of Things. So some of the business around this is just the business case is phenomenal. The retention, the coverage, and the analysis. The coverage is probably the big one, right? They used to just do sample, right? A minute of an hour, 10 minutes of a day, right? Because that's what they could store. That's what they could afford, And once you start storing 100% of all of your data science teams now have treasure troves to find tiny little movements that they never could see before because they never had the data. Right? So that's what's powerful about these things, is you can truly store 100% of all the data. So what this kind of sums up is, we hear a lot about a data lake and what is a data lake, right? So there's a bunch of elements. We have a booth downstairs with the Teradata team. We'd be happy to talk to you about this. So, we've packaged a lot of the componentry and the design patterns around this. And again, we're open source friendly. We work with anyone on the planet. We work with, integration patterns for everyone that's out there. So from our perspective, it's about the services and the frameworks that we can use with our clients to make them wildly successful. So that's kind of the packaging of a lot of that. So a couple of announcements. We had a press announcement yesterday that we are kind of launching Think Big internationally, which is a huge, huge announcement for us. So over the first 5 years, we're primarily North America. So this announcement is part of the investment and the acquisition from Teradata. So kind of taking advantage. I mean, Teradata operates in over, I think, 55 countries around the world. So from a Think Big perspective, we are kind of centering our international expansion in London. We are opening up a solution center in Dublin. We took over essentially a capability in Mumbai, India for managed services and offshore engineering. We're going to be going to Munich, Germany in phase 1 as well. So this is really, really exciting news. Personally, from my side, I'm actually moving over from the States to London to head this up. So I've done this in the past. Back in the 90s, I moved over to Europe to start our European operations for Seabridge, spinoff out of Cambridge. So I'm real excited to be announcing this today. Our second announcement, and we have a demo down at our booth. This is a pretty sophisticated pattern. So, once you have all those things that I just talked about, what are some things that you can do on top of this? Those of you, how many of you have tried to put Tableau directly to Hadoop? How did that go? At scale with lots of users, all right? So yeah, challenging. Well, so now 2 wonderful pieces of technologies, and I think Tableau is a phenomenal tool and a tool that we're really excited to partner with in the marketplace. There's other BI tools as well. But one thing that we see is when you want to have deep dimensional drill down from a BI tool, a dashboard, if you will, a visual dashboard, into Hadoop, there's some key processing things that you need to do right. So we've packaged a bunch of those, and you can see a demo of it downstairs. So really, really excited about this particular component in our enterprise data lake. So any of you who are trying to point visual tools into your Hadoop data lake, we'd love to talk to you about that and how it could help you. So a little bit about this, kind of events that are coming in. If you think of clickstream data, I think the demo downstairs is airline data. So it's 10 years worth of every single piece of information from the airline industry. And not a lot of smoke and mirrors. This is a real demo that we're demoing down there. So kind of exposing Tableau directly on top of that with lightning fast response time. Now, granted, it's one user in, but we've simulated multiple users hitting this at scale, multiple queries, and just amazing, amazing response time. So something we're very, very excited to make an announcement on. So come visit our booth and take a look at that if you're interested. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you very, very much, and please come visit us at the booth. Thank you.